I showed up to my grandson's 10th birthday with a gift wrapped in navy blue and a heart full of hope. I didn't want to cause trouble. I just wanted to see him smile. But before he could even lay eyes on me, my daughter snatched the box from my hands and said coldly, "We don't need handouts from you." Then she told me to leave. Just like that. I walked away without a word, humiliated, with laughter echoing from the backyard behind me. But that night, just after midnight, I heard a knock at my door. And when I opened it, there was my grandson, soaked from the rain, clutching the same gift she'd thrown away. What happened next was rather unexpected. I will tell you everything. First, let me thank you for your continuous support. If you love stories like this one, support us by subscribing to this channel and comment where you are watching us from. It will be great to hear from you. Now let's jump into the details of what happened. I never liked being the center of attention. Even as a kid, I was the one who sat in the back of the classroom, kept my head down, and listened more than I spoke. That tendency didn't change much as I got older. I wasn't flashy, didn't chase the spotlight. I just worked hard, came home, and made sure the people I loved had what they needed, even when they didn't say thank you. My name's Raymond. I'm 62 years old, a retired electrician. Spent 37 years climbing ladders, rewiring old houses, fixing blown circuits, and teaching younger guys how not to electrocute themselves. It was good, honest work, the kind that leaves your back sore but your conscience clear. I've lived alone ever since my wife, Maria, passed. 7 years now. Cancer, quick and cruel. Some days, I still talk to her out loud. Usually when I'm cooking something and forget the salt, or when I'm watching one of those home renovation shows she loved. I tell her about my day, the neighbors, the weather. And always, I tell her about Noah, our grandson. Noah is 10 years old now. Bright-eyed, curious, with the kind of laugh that makes people turn around and smile even if they don't know what's funny. He used to spend every other weekend with me when he was little. We'd go to the park, build little towers out of scrap wood in the garage, and make up bedtime stories about explorers on Mars. But those visits stopped about 2 years ago. Not because of Noah. Never because of him. It was Angela, my daughter. She and I used to be close, back when she still believed I could fix anything. But things soured after Maria died. Angela needed help, financial, mostly, and I did what I could. Paid off her car loan once. Watched Noah for weeks at a time. But when she came to me asking to co-sign on a $200,000 business loan for a bakery she hadn't even secured a location for, I said no. I didn't yell, didn't shame her. I just said, "Honey, that's too much risk. I can't jeopardize my retirement like that." She didn't take it well. She called me selfish, accused me of never believing in her, said I was holding her back, just like I always did when she was younger. Then she took Noah and stopped returning my calls. The visits dried up. The texts went unanswered. Eventually, I stopped trying. But I never stopped thinking about Noah. I sent birthday cards, Christmas gifts, postcards from short road trips I'd take just to keep my mind busy. Sometimes I'd drop by and leave a book or a small toy on their porch. Never stayed long. Just wanted him to know Grandpa hadn't disappeared. And then, last week, I found out from a mutual acquaintance, my old neighbor Margie, whose niece's kid goes to school with Noah, that his birthday party was coming up. Saturday. Small thing at Angela's place. Backyard cookout. Balloons. Cupcakes. Nothing fancy. I stood in the toy aisle at Target for 45 minutes trying to decide what to get. I wanted it to be special, but not too extravagant. Eventually, I picked a Lego Space Shuttle kit. It felt right, reminded me of those bedtime stories. I wrapped it in navy blue paper, tied it with silver ribbon, and even wrote a little note inside the card. To my brave explorer. Keep building, keep dreaming. Love, Grandpa. I arrived a little early. Figured I'd drop off the gift, say happy birthday, and leave before things got awkward. There were cars lining the street. I recognized a few. Angela's co-workers, probably, and her friend Janelle, who used to be warm to me, but now barely made eye contact when we crossed paths. I took a deep breath, adjusted the collar of my shirt, and walked up the driveway with the gift under my arm. Angela opened the door. Her expression froze the second she saw me. "Dad," she said flatly. No smile. No warmth. "Hey," I said, trying to keep my tone light. I heard it was Noah's big day. Thought I'd stop by for a minute. Her eyes dropped to the gift in my hands. She snatched it quickly, too quickly. and hugged it to her chest like I might take it back. "We don't need handouts from you," she snapped. My stomach dropped. "It's not a handout," I said softly. "It's a birthday gift for my grandson." She shook her head, her mouth already twisted with anger. "Noah doesn't need to see you. Not today. Not ever, if it were up to me." I opened my mouth to speak, but the words caught. My throat tightened. "I'll leave," I said instead. "I didn't come to fight." She didn't say another word, just stepped back, slammed the door, and left me standing there like I was a stranger begging at someone's porch. I walked back to my car, the sound of laughter and music fading behind me. Drove home in silence. No radio, no phone, just the dull ache in my chest and the sound of tires on asphalt. When I got back to my apartment, I sat in my recliner, staring at the blank TV screen. My phone buzzed once. It was Curtis, my neighbor across the hall. "You good?" he texted. I replied, "Not really, but thanks for asking." He knocked 10 minutes later, holding 2 beers. I told him what happened. "Damn," he said, shaking his head. "That's cold, man. I'm sorry. She thinks I'm trying to buy my way back in," I muttered, "like I'm trying to make up for something. But I've always been there. Just not the way she wanted, I guess." Curtis leaned back, took a sip. "Kids rewrite history when they're hurt, or when they want something they didn't get." I nodded slowly. "But that boy," he added, "he'll remember who showed up, not who shut the door." Those words stuck with me all night. I went to bed early. Woke up around 1 a.m. to the sound of rain tapping against the windows. Couldn't sleep. I walked into the kitchen, made myself a cup of tea, and stood at the sink, staring into the darkness outside. That's when I heard it, 3 soft knocks at the front door. Not loud, not urgent, just steady. I opened it slowly, unsure of what to expect. And there he was, Noah. Soaked from head to toe, shivering slightly, holding the gift I'd brought earlier that day. "Grandpa," he said, voice cracking. "I'm sorry, but I didn't want to leave without saying thank you." That's what he said, his voice small, soaked through with guilt and rain. I just stood there for a second, stunned. My eyes blinked like I was waking from a dream I hadn't realized I was having. He looked smaller than I remembered. His dark hair stuck to his forehead in wet little curls, his jacket clinging to him like plastic wrap. And in his hands was the navy blue wrapped box, the ribbon now damp and sagging, but still intact. I didn't even say a word. I just stepped aside and opened the door wider. "Come in," I said, voice low. "Let's get you warm." He stepped inside, shoes squeaking on the mat. I grabbed a towel from the hall closet, dropped it over his head like I used to do when he was a toddler, and started drying him off as he laughed quietly. "You're soaked," I muttered. "I had to sneak out," he whispered, clutching the box like it was sacred. "Mom was upstairs on the phone. I needed to see you." There was something about the way he said it, so matter-of-fact, like it wasn't a decision at all, like it was a calling. I guided him to the couch and wrapped a blanket around his shoulders. "You didn't have to run out in the rain to tell me thank you," I said gently, sitting beside him. He looked up at me with those same brown eyes his mother used to have when she was young, before the bitterness carved into them. "I know," he said, "but Mom said I couldn't open it. She got mad when I asked where it came from. She said it was from someone who doesn't care about us." My jaw clenched. I tried to smile, but it felt like glass in my mouth. "Do you believe that?" I asked. He didn't answer right away. He stared down at the gift in his lap. "I remember the rocket stories," he said quietly, "and how you used to tape stars to the ceiling in the guest room and tell me one day I'd build my own spaceship. I remember pancakes shaped like Saturn." He paused. "I don't think someone who doesn't care would do that." I had to look away. Silence sat heavy between us, but not uncomfortable. Just full. Full of everything unsaid, every visit denied, every card tossed in the trash before it reached his hands. "You hungry?" I asked finally. He nodded. "Grilled cheese. With the crust cut off?" he asked, hopeful. "Of course." I got up and busied myself in the kitchen. It felt good to move, to do something familiar. The clatter of pans, the hiss of butter on the skillet, it grounded me. Every few minutes, I glanced at him in the living room. He was turning the box in his hands, reverent, like it held something more than plastic bricks and an instruction manual. We ate at the small table by the window, the rain still drumming lightly outside. He talked more then, about school, about his favorite teacher, how he'd been reading about Mars colonies. For a moment, it felt normal, like we hadn't missed 2 years, like I hadn't been shoved out of his life like an unwanted guest. But the truth sat heavy under every word. I saw it in the way his shoulders curled when he mentioned home, in the way his fingers tightened around his glass of root beer whenever he spoke about his mother. "She told me not to talk to you," he said finally, his voice small again. "She said you only show up when you want something." I let out a slow breath. "And what do you think?" I asked. He met my eyes. "I think she's angry. I don't know why, but I know she is. And I think she says things that aren't true when she's mad." That boy had more insight in him than some adults I've known. It hurt to hear, but it also made me proud. "You're a smart kid, Noah," I said. "Smarter than I was at your age." He smiled, and for a second, the years melted off his face and he looked 5 again. Then my phone buzzed. "Angela." Just the name on the screen made my stomach turn. "I should probably let her know you're safe," I said, picking it up. He looked scared. "Don't tell her to come get me yet. Please. Just a little longer." I nodded. "I'll tell her you're here." That's it. I answered the call and held it to my ear. "Hello. Is he with you?" Angela's voice snapped before I could even say his name. "You better tell me he's there, because if you let him run around in the rain." "He's safe?" I said calmly. "He's here. Dry? Federal. You can stop panicking." "I'm not panicking," she snapped again, though the breath she took afterward betrayed the lie. "You had no right." "I didn't do anything, Angela," I cut in. "He showed up at my door. On his own. With the gift you wouldn't let him open." A pause. Just one beat of silence. Then she exploded. "You're manipulating him." I knew it. "You're trying to turn him against me." "He's 10 years old," I said, keeping my voice even. "He just wanted to say thank you. That's all." "You don't get to decide what's all anymore," she hissed. "You lost that privilege when you abandoned us." I flinched, the old wound reopening like it was fresh. "I didn't abandon anyone, Angela. I said no to a loan. That's not the same as walking away." "You always say that," she snapped. "But you never think about what it felt like." I wanted to argue, to remind her of the money I did give, the hours I spent watching Noah, the times I showed up unasked just to fix her leaking faucet or replace her busted porch light. But I knew it wouldn't matter. She wasn't listening. She hadn't been for a long time. "I'll bring him home in the morning," I said. "He's tired. He needs sleep." She didn't say thank you. Didn't ask to talk to him. Just hung up. I stared at the phone for a moment before setting it down on the counter. Noah was watching me, quiet, tense. "She mad?" "Yeah," I said softly. "But that's not your fault." He looked down at his plate. "She's always mad lately." I didn't know what to say to that, so I didn't try to explain it away. Instead, I said, "You're always welcome here. You hear me?" He nodded, and then, without asking, he stood, walked over, and hugged me tight. The kind of hug that says everything words never can. He fell asleep on the couch not long after our late dinner, still wrapped in the blanket, the half-damp gift box clutched to his chest like it was some ancient relic he'd rescued from a sinking ship. I sat in the recliner across from him, watching his chest rise and fall, steady and calm, and I couldn't help but wonder how a child that young had already been dragged into a war he never asked for. Angela was going to come down on me hard in the morning. I knew that. The fact that she hadn't come right away, hadn't demanded I bring him home immediately, was already a miracle, or maybe just exhaustion on her part. But I also knew that whatever came next, it wouldn't be fair, and it sure as hell wouldn't be kind. I pulled the Afghan off the back of the recliner and draped it over Noah. His fingers twitched, but he didn't wake. Just curled deeper into the couch, like this place, my place, was still familiar to him in some quiet, buried way. And for the first time in a long while, I let myself believe I hadn't lost everything. The next morning came gray and cold, with the rain finally burned off, but the ground still slick from the night before. I let Noah sleep in. We had pancakes again, this time with chocolate chips shaped like little stars. When he finally woke up, hair wild and eyes still puffy, he looked at me and smiled like it was the most normal thing in the world. "Did she call again?" he asked over breakfast. "She did," I said, setting his plate in front of him. "Said she wanted you home." He looked down, pushing the pancake bits around with his fork. "I figured," he said. "She's going to be really mad." "You didn't do anything wrong," I said again, gently. He didn't answer. But he didn't argue, either. Around 10 a.m., I got dressed, packed up a small bag of dry clothes and Noah's shoes, and we got in the car. Neither of us said much on the drive. It wasn't awkward, just quiet. Like we were both trying to stretch those last few minutes of peace before reality came crashing back in. Angela lived in a small ranch house about 10 minutes from my place. Her SUV was already in the driveway when we pulled up. I parked at the curb. Noah held the Lego box in his lap the whole way and didn't let go of it even as we stepped out into the morning chill. "Want me to walk you up?" I asked. He hesitated, then nodded. The second we hit the walkway, the front door flew open. Angela stood there with her arms crossed, jaw tight, body trembling, not with fear, but with rage. "You think this is okay?" she snapped, not even waiting for us to reach the porch. "You think taking my child in the middle of the night and keeping him is okay?" "He came to me," I said calmly. "You know that." "I don't know anything anymore, Dad," she spat. "Except that you're really good at pretending to be the victim." "Angela," I started, trying to keep my voice low for Noah's sake. "No," she barked. "Don't Angela me. Don't stand there like you're some poor, misunderstood saint. You undermine me. Again. You always do this. Show up like some savior, then act shocked when people are upset." Noah flinched next to me. "I didn't show up," I said. "You slammed the door in my face, remember?" "He came to me. In the rain. With a gift you wouldn't even let him open." Angela's eyes flicked to the box in Noah's hands, and for a second, just a split second, I saw something break in her. Something like shame. But it was gone before I could confirm it. "I don't want him around you," she hissed. "I don't trust you. You're manipulative and condescending, and you always have been. You think because you didn't hit anyone or drink yourself stupid that you were a good parent? Newsflash, emotional neglect is still neglect, Dad." That one hit me. Not because it was true, but because I could tell she believed it. Noah looked up at her, confused. "What does that mean?" Angela's expression flickered, realizing he was still listening. "Go inside, Noah," she said sharply. He didn't move. "Now." Still nothing. "Mom," he said quietly, "you told me Grandpa left us." But he didn't. He just said no. That's not the same. Her eyes went wide, and then narrow. "So now he's feeding you his version of things, huh?" "No one fed me anything," Noah said. I remember. The silence after that was heavy. A neighbor across the street glanced over, sensing something brewing. I felt suddenly aware of how loud this all was. How public. Angela turned her fury on me again. "I swear to God, if you ever go behind my back again, I will go to court. I'll get an order. You won't even be allowed within 100 feet of him." I swallowed hard. "If that's what you need to do to feel safe, then do it," I said. "But don't lie to him anymore. Don't take your anger at me and wrap it in poison and feed it to that boy. He's smarter than that, and he deserves better." She scoffed. "Save the sermon, preacher." Then she grabbed Noah's arm, not hard, but firm, and pulled him inside. The door slammed. Again. And I stood there. Again. But this time, I didn't feel humiliated. Just tired. I got back in the car. Didn't cry. Didn't curse. Just sat there for a moment and let the reality settle in. I'd crossed a line in her eyes. One I couldn't uncross. But for Noah, I'd cross it again. As I pulled away from the curb, my phone buzzed. A text. "Curtis, just saw your daughter blowing up outside. You good?" I stared at it for a second, then typed back. "Yeah, not good, but right." I didn't sleep that night, not really. I dozed for maybe an hour or two, but my mind kept replaying the scene on Angela's porch like it was stuck on a loop. The way she barked at me in front of Noah, the way he looked up at her, not scared exactly, but wary, like he'd just discovered something about his mother he couldn't unsee. And the worst part? That brief flash in her eyes when she realized he'd caught her in a lie. Not guilt, not regret, just panic. The next morning, I found the drawing on my doormat. It was folded in half, smudged a little, like it had been rushed into an envelope and slipped under the door. Crayon mostly. A little stick figure version of me and Noah standing on top of what looked like the moon, surrounded by stars. He'd drawn the Lego shuttle we'd built, hovering above us in bright orange and gray. At the top, in his uneven handwriting, it read, "To Grandpa, best sleepover ever." I stared at that paper for 10 minutes, hands trembling slightly. I should have felt happy, grateful, but instead, I felt rage. Because I realized just how much I'd missed. I missed him learning to ride a bike, missed his first science fair, missed his obsession with Mars, and when it started, missed years of memories because my daughter had decided that my refusal to sign a loan made me the villain in her story. I folded the drawing carefully and tucked it into the top drawer of my desk, right next to Maria's last letter to me. Around lunchtime, I went downstairs to check the mail. That's when I ran into Curtis again. He was standing by the front steps with his ridiculous Boston Terrier, Snickers, letting her do her business on the strip of grass by the sidewalk. He glanced up as I approached and whistled low. "She's got a temper, your daughter," he said, not unkindly. "I noticed," I replied, pulling the envelope of bills from the box. "You saw? Hard to miss." She was screaming loud enough to wake up half the block. I sighed. "She's talking about a restraining order," I said quietly. Curtis raised an eyebrow. "Seriously?" I nodded. "She thinks I'm manipulating Noah, that I'm trying to turn him against her." Curtis frowned, then looked around before leaning in a little. "Want my advice? Document everything. Keep texts. Take notes. If it comes down to court stuff, you'll need proof that you haven't overstepped." I didn't want it to come to that. I wasn't trying to win custody or anything ridiculous. I just wanted to be in the boy's life. Just wanted him to know that someone besides his mother gave a damn. "I appreciate that," I said, shaking his hand. "Hopefully it won't come to that." Curtis didn't look so sure. Later that afternoon, I got a call from the school. It was the front office secretary, who knew me from when I used to pick Noah up twice a month. "Mr. Lawson," she said cautiously, "I hope you don't mind me calling, but Noah dropped something off with the counselor today. He asked her to give it to you." I was quiet for a second. "What was it?" "It's a letter. We can't open it, of course. But, given the circumstances, we thought you should know he was thinking of you." My chest tightened. "I'll come by tomorrow," I said. That night, I sat on my couch, the TV playing some background noise I wasn't watching, and replayed every birthday I'd spent with Noah. Every small moment, like how he used to grab my finger with his whole hand when he was a baby, or how he'd ask if Mars had playgrounds. These weren't big, dramatic memories. They were quiet, almost forgettable to anyone else. But they were ours, and Angela was trying to erase them. I was still thinking about that when the building manager, Linda, knocked on my door just after 8 p.m. She looked hesitant, holding a clipboard and wearing that neutral, "don't kill the messenger" expression. "Raymond," she said, "I got a call from someone. Anonymous, but I think we both know who. Claiming you had an unauthorized minor overnight in your unit." I blinked. "Excuse me. They said you might be violating building policy by having a child stay over without a custodial agreement." I stared at her for a long moment. Then I laughed, but not because it was funny, because it was ridiculous. "You're kidding," I said. She looked sympathetic. "I'm not. But I'm not doing anything about it. I told them I'd look into it. But between you and me, this feels personal." "It is," I muttered. "Very." She also left a voicemail on the office line, Linda added. Said if we didn't intervene, she'd escalate it. "Let her," I said flatly. "I've done nothing wrong." Linda nodded. "Just thought you should know. I'll mark the complaint as resolved. But you might want to consider getting ahead of this, Raymond. People like that, when they get bitter, they don't stop." After she left, I sat there in the dark. So this was how far Angela was willing to go. She wasn't just trying to keep me away. She wanted to ruin my reputation, maybe even get me evicted. It wasn't just about control anymore. It was about punishment. She wanted to punish me for saying no, for drawing boundaries, for refusing to hand her a blank check and call it love. But the worst part wasn't her rage. It was knowing she believed, truly believed, that she was protecting her son. That's what made it so hard to fight back. Because in her mind, I was the threat. And no matter how much I loved Noah, I couldn't unmake her version of the truth. 2 days passed before I went to the school. I called ahead, arranged to meet the counselor privately, so it wouldn't stir anything up. I didn't want Angela accusing me of popping up and upsetting Noah during class hours. But when I walked into that small office tucked in the east wing of the elementary school, I wasn't prepared for what waited on that desk. The envelope wasn't big, just a regular white one with a red sticker on it that said, "For Grandpa only." Inside was a short letter, written in thick pencil lines. "Dear Grandpa, I miss you. I wish we could have sleepovers every weekend. I had fun building the rocket, and I kept the card you wrote me. I know Mom is mad, but I know you love me. I love you too. Love, Noah. I didn't cry. Not in front of the counselor. But I stared at those words for a long time, like they were a photograph of a life I wasn't allowed to keep. The counselor, Mrs. Emery, sat across from me, her hands folded gently in her lap. Noah's a good kid, she said softly. He's been holding some things in. He talks about you a lot. I just want to be part of his life, I said, my voice low and tight. That's all I've ever wanted. I believe you, she said. And for what it's worth, I think he does too. I left that building with the letter in my coat pocket and the weight of it pressing against my heart like a stone. But things didn't calm down. Later that week, I got a knock on my door again. This time not from Linda or Curtis, but from a woman I didn't recognize at first. Mid-40s, light makeup, expensive nails, holding a Starbucks cup like it was part of her identity. Hi, you're Raymond, right? I nodded. I'm Janelle, Angela's friend. Oh, right. The one who used to give me fake smiles at birthday parties and then stopped looking me in the eye when all this went south. She told me about everything, Janelle continued. Said you've been interfering, manipulating. No. I leaned against the doorframe. Is this a warning? Or a lecture? Neither, she said quickly. Actually, I wanted to hear your side, because I've seen some stuff lately that doesn't sit right with me. That caught me off guard. She sighed and looked around, like someone might be watching. Angela's been unraveling. She's always been intense, but lately it's like she's rewriting history. Saying things about you that don't match what I remember. Saying Noah's confused because you're brainwashing him. She made air quotes and looked tired just repeating it. I didn't speak. I was afraid to trust it. But I nodded once, just to let her keep going. I saw the way Noah looked after that sleepover, she said. He was glowing. Happier than I've seen him in months. And then Angela spent the next 3 days calling you every name in the book. She even made a post on Facebook that made it sound like you kidnapped him. That made my chest seize. She what? It's down now, she said quickly. Probably realized how bad it looked. But it happened. That was when I made the decision. I didn't want war. I didn't want custody battles or lawyers or ugly headlines. But I needed to protect the truth. I needed proof of who I was, who I've always been, before her lies could smear it all away. So I started writing it all down. Every call, every visit, every text or I was walking through the farmer's market, picking up apples and chatting with the woman who sold honey jars, when I overheard 2 women talking by the flower stall. She said her dad just showed up and wouldn't leave. That he tried to keep Noah overnight without permission. Isn't that illegal? I think she's pressing charges. I didn't stop walking. Didn't correct them. But my ears burned hot. My blood surged. Angela was poisoning people against me. Not just in private, but publicly, casually, like it was just fact. So I did something I didn't think I'd ever do. I wrote my own post. I kept it short, clear, calm. I've stayed quiet out of respect for my daughter and my grandson. But lies are beginning to damage the truth. I never took Noah without permission. He came to me, in the rain, with a gift I had brought him that his mother refused to let him open. I have never interfered. I have only loved him, quietly and consistently, for years. If defending that relationship makes me a villain, so be it. I didn't tag her, didn't name names. But within 2 hours, I got over 80 messages. Some from old friends, some from family. Even one from my cousin Evelyn, who hadn't spoken to me since Maria's funeral. Most said the same thing. We wondered what really happened. I never heard from Angela after the Facebook post. Not directly, anyway. She didn't call, didn't text, didn't send one of her venom-laced voicemails. But I could feel her reaction rippling through the people around us like a dropped glass in a quiet room. Janelle unfriended me. A few of Angela's old co-workers who I'd met at Noah's earlier birthdays left vague, disappointed comments on my post. People who didn't know anything but were desperate to pick a side. But that wasn't why I posted. I didn't want a war. I didn't want to humiliate my daughter, even after all she'd done. I just wanted to stop being erased. I wanted people, Noah, to know I was still here, that I never left. That line I wrote in the post. If defending that relationship makes me a villain, so be it, wasn't for show. It was the truth. Because I'd rather be called a villain by the bitter than be forgotten by the one person who still looked at me like I mattered. A week after the post, a manila envelope arrived in the mail. No return address, but I recognized the handwriting immediately. Angela. Inside was a letter. Typed. Cold. It read like a legal memo, not a daughter's note. Any further attempt to communicate directly with my son will be considered harassment. All gifts, letters, and visits must be pre-approved. Do not come to our home, to his school, or to events unless invited. This is your final warning before I pursue legal measures. There was no signature. No Angela. No mom. Just the words, sterile and full of threat. I stared at the paper for a long time before folding it neatly and placing it in a folder labeled Custody, Raymond Lawson/Noah Lawson. I wasn't going to respond. There was nothing left to say to her. But Noah? Noah hadn't stopped writing. About once every 2 weeks, I'd find a new letter slipped under my door, hidden in the bushes by the mailbox, or stuck between the slats of the wooden bench outside the library. Always unsigned. Always full of joy. He never asked about the fight. Never mentioned what his mother said. He just told me about his life. I got an A on my Mars colony project. Our team won at soccer, and I scored a goal. I saw a shooting star last night and made a wish. I can't say what it was or it won't come true, but you'll probably guess. I kept every single one. Sometimes I'd write a response, even if I didn't know if he'd see it. I'd tape it under the bench where he once left a letter. Or I'd hide it behind the planter on the edge of the school fence, somewhere only a curious boy would think to look. I couldn't call that a relationship, but I could call it a lifeline. One afternoon in early spring, I was walking back from the market when I spotted him. Noah, sitting on the steps outside the public library. He was pretending to read a book, but I saw him glance up as I passed. Just once. Just quick. He didn't wave. But he didn't look away, either. That was our new language. 2 weeks later, I found a crumpled napkin in my mailbox with a drawing on it. Him and me, sitting on a bench, looking at the stars again. I smiled and pressed it to my chest. There would always be distance between me and Angela now. That door had closed for good. Maybe one day she'd unpack her anger and find the truth underneath. Or maybe she wouldn't. I couldn't control that. I wouldn't spend the rest of my years begging for a seat at a table she'd set on fire. I loved her, but I didn't know her my silence. And I wouldn't let her silence me from Noah's life either. Not completely. Not while there were still drawings, notes, napkins, stars. Boundaries aren't about winning. They're about surviving. She crossed mine years ago. I finally drew mine back. And I kept the porch light on every night. Not as a signal of hope for reconciliation, but as a promise. If he ever needed a place where the door stayed open, he'd know where to find it. If this story stirred something in you, if you've ever had to choose between your peace and your place in someone's life, share your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever drawn a boundary with someone you love, even when it hurt? Let's talk about it. Your story could be the one someone else needs to hear.